Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Sohil, and I'm going to be presenting today with my colleague Logan. And just to go over a few housekeeping items up top. If you look at the right of your screen, you'll see you can join the chat. You can ask questions in the Q&A, and you can download our slide deck in the resources tab on the right as well. And just for some fun engagement up top, please just write your name in the chat, where you're from, and just tell us a little bit about yourself. A little bit of background on me. I'm the product marketing lead for trade show solutions here at Cvent. So I've been in Cvent a little over 2.5 years now, and I lead the product positioning, the content creation, the messaging, and overall go-to-market strategy for these tools here at Cvent. And these include newly acquired companies iCapture and Jiffle Now. So it's my role here to ensure that these tools are represented in the right way, so creating content around them, taking trade show solutions, and its releases to the market in the best way possible.
My name is Logan Downey. I'm director at Cvent Consulting. And if you're not familiar with Cvent Consulting, we offer consulting services focusing on business process optimization, technology and tools, and training and onboarding for your total events program. I also lead Cvent Consulting's life sciences vertical. So for those of you who are not necessarily familiar, over the past year and a half, we have verticalized because of the important needs of this industry. And we want to make sure that we have the right tools internally to support all of your diverse needs across your orgs. We've worked on a number of projects over the last several years specific to the life sciences sector. And my role involves providing strategic meetings management, consulting, using business intelligence and data analytics to kind of solve your business problems, and also ensuring the successful completion of those projects amongst our clients. Prior to coming to Cvent, I had the luxury of wearing many hats. I worked in the nonprofit sector. I worked for a third-party meeting planning organization where some of my clients were life sciences partners. And so I feel like I have a lot of things I can share with you today. I'm really excited about that. So Hill, should we dive in?
Sure. So today's session is meant to be a little bit of a walkthrough on just what the market is saying around trade shows, congresses that organizations attend. What they should look out for when planning out their strategy, the tips to get the most out of these events, as well as just a quick overview on Cvent trade show solutions on how to best deliver impact and increase connectivity and engagement. So just a little bit of the agenda. We're going to kick off with a quick state of the industry. So this includes trends that are going on in the life sciences industry, as well as a couple of stats to highlight the story that we're telling today. Then we're going to jump into what the life sciences market is experiencing just in terms of pain points, what their pains are, what they're not, what they care about. We're going to jump into maximizing impact and what you need to have in your toolkit. And this is where Cvent trade show solutions will come in as a reference. Then we're going to wind down and give you some actionable tips and just best practices on how, what to take with you after this webinar. And then lastly, we're going to close out with some Q&A and just answer all those questions that are top of mind.
Great, thanks. So let's talk a little bit about the life sciences industry and the trends that we're seeing today. Really, we're identifying kind of the most notable trends in the program consolidation and simple meeting space. So this desire to optimize your program today to make sure that you're doing the right things with the right tools and you're consolidating it where it makes sense, but also a lens into kind of what's happening from a simple meetings perspective, and are you capturing the important aspects of the simple meetings that perhaps are not captured today. We also look at kind of our global technology adoption practices. So how do we think about them from a local and a global level? But when we think about a single source of truth to be able to manage our meeting and events, we look at it as from how are we globally adopting that technologies for consistency across the board. We've had a lot of hyper focus on Congress management, which is why you're here today. So you're going to hear us talk about trade show solutions, but that's really with a lens towards Congress management, how to do perhaps more with less, make some things a little bit less manual, and also just making sure you're utilizing the right technologies for the success of your organization. There's been a hyper focus as well on data strategies. So we're having a lot of conversations with not only the meeting and events teams that are life sciences partners, but also with those who sit in the marketing space within those organizations to identify the data strategy and how are you managing that across teams internally, but then also across your technical platforms. And then speaking of marketing, there's really been a hyper focus on either increasing the budget or perhaps maybe maintaining the budget, but also bringing in the marketing piece so that we have the right audience and the right mix of individuals so that we can, again, further demonstrate that impact in terms of your return on investment. And particularly, we recently read a study about the life sciences marketing budgets that they've increased with a hyper focus on trade shows or congresses and events being the most preferred areas for spending. And that came from an HCEA study that we recently read about. I like to shift into kind of what's happening in life sciences. We had an internal conversation with our life sciences forum partners recently, and we heard kind of 4 key things here. One is that due to the market climate, there are some hyper focus around, or there is some hyper focus around cost considerations. So how you're doing what you're doing in the various markets that you're serving, that could be regions, countries, etc. How to do more with less. So eliminate some of the manual processes by focusing in on automation and simplification. So how you're doing what you're doing today. There has been also this kind of focus around the program growth. So growing your program internally, and that's inclusive of how you're using the data that you're capturing, perhaps some of the traditional SMM data that you're capturing, but also some of that additive data around engagement and analytics that perhaps your marketing teams would want to have so that it tells a more holistic story to your stakeholders. And finally, that in-person meetings are taking precedence. So while hybrid and virtual were very important formats in the past, we're focusing in more notably on in-person meetings today. So Hill, can I turn it over to you to talk about the state of the industry at large?
Yes, you can. So now that you have an idea on the state of things in the life sciences industry, we wanted to just take a little bit of time to go over a couple of timely stats that illustrate what the market is saying about events at large. So these were taken from 3 studies. One was an Emoda research report into HCP Congress experiences. The other was a recent Gartner study called Evolve Your Event Marketing Strategy for 2024 and Beyond. And then the last one was a reputable trade show blog listing out a couple of powerful stats on trade shows and congresses in 2024. So we want you to pay special attention to this first one. So 12.7% of annual marketing program budgets are spent on events you attend. This one was taken from the Gartner study, and it really highlights a big reason why we're here today. In an overall marketing program budget, 13% of the whole budget is spent on events the organization attends. It's clearly a big deal. This is why it's really important to make sure to deliver on that investment. And then putting strategies in place to do so is what we're going to dive into in detail today. The other stats here further tell the story of trade show and Congress attendees and trade show marketers. So 81% of trade show attendees have buying authority. 76% of HCPs value interactions with industry professionals as an important aspect of their conference. And only 6% of marketers believe their companies are successful in converting trade show leads into customers. So these stats tell us there's a huge need to extract the most amount of value from events you attend, but a bit of disparity and a potential lack in the tools and methods for actually executing on those. Moving forward. So we're going to look a little bit at the pain points that are related to poor event impact, and they stem from these key areas. So manual work, improper and inconsistent data collection, as well as lack of actionable insights. So first one, we all know that if collecting business cards and manually transferring that information to Excel documents is not the most efficient or the best way to do things, but it's still the main method that a lot of people are using to schedule meetings and managing engagement data. This is usually because it's just the path of least resistance. You know, the barrier to entry is low and so is the cost. So however, this leads to just a huge headache in keeping track of important information, and it doesn't provide the most efficient way to do so. Next one is incomplete or inconsistent data collection. So manual work and just inconsistent or lacking technology, it'll ultimately lead to having inconsistent and incomplete data. And it won't get to your teams on time. And sometimes when it does, it's just too late, and the leads are frozen up quicker than we might have realized. And so going back to the manual work pain point, manually sorting and entering in these engagements into the CRM also takes time, and it might be inconsistent as well as a process. You want to make sure you're truly capturing those fields and areas of interest, and you want to capture data beyond just business cards. And the last one, which is potentially the most important one, is lack of actionable insights. So manual work and inconsistent data collection, they also affect what is actually actionable post-show. So more often than not, the information is incomplete or they're not qualified. So what you want after attending a Congress or trade show are actionable insights. You want these insights to generate personal connections, align on patient outcomes, problem solve for specific needs, and create overall deeper HCP relationships. So the bottom line between all of these pain points is many are not accurately able to track and measure the impact of those events they attend because they fall into one or many of these pain points. Try taking a consistent look at your process today, and if you feel like your current program may fall victim to one or all of these, the good news is there are tactics you can put in place to help steer the ship in the right direction.
Now it's time for a poll, right? So I think it'd be great if we could ask all of you which pain point is the one that you experience the most when it comes to participating in congresses and or trade shows. Awesome. Looks like we have some responses coming in, which is really exciting. All right, so based on the responses that we see, let's check these out. It looks like manual processes and data inconsistency are somewhat similar in nature, but your largest pain point is the engagement quality and quantity. So being able to figure out where those land in your spaces. Interesting. Well, great. Well, so we have some solutions for you today, but before we get into those solutions, we want to talk a little bit about some of the event types that you are participating in. When we think about how you think of your annual events and where your sales teams or your leadership teams are maintaining a presence to either exhibit at meetings or hold meetings with HCPs in particular, could be extended past to buyers as well, for those of you who are not in the life sciences space. But today we're going to take a specific focus on life sciences. When we think about congresses, let's talk about this type of event as a platform for access to research and innovation, and a wonderful networking opportunity for HCPs to interact and engage with their colleagues and experts and thought leaders in this space. Because we want to make sure that we are communicating all the great things that are happening either in therapies or med devices to benefit their patients. It's also an opportunity for your companies to be able to showcase the very best of your organization and be able to share features, advantages, and benefits of everything that you have to offer. In addition to that, the same goes for what we would call a traditional trade show or conference. So let's face it, when you're on the show floor or the Congress floor, these floors can be enormous, and you have business meetings as well as potential buyers walking past your booth, and you want to be able to stay engaged with those who have shown interest in what you have to offer. But capturing a business card can be tiring, or snapping a simple picture of somebody's LinkedIn QR code doesn't really remind me about what we talked about. So I need a good way or a place to capture that information to be able to come back and action all the success I've had on that show floor. At field sales events, things like being able to invite your HCPs to an evening dinner program or perhaps a lunch, where you need to be able to have quick dialogue and conversation with them, but also want to be able to follow up. Let's say you may be covering for another rep in the market, and these aren't your typical HCPs that you're used to connecting with, but you're obviously talking about your product. Having the ability to capture that information kind of in real time and pass that on to your field services team to kind of, or field sales team to kind of successfully further that dialogue is often very, very helpful. And then finally, with general meetings or co-located events while you're attending a meeting, obviously you do that most frequently at congresses and at trade shows. Any additional meetings that you're having each day are going to be really important, and being able to capture the need and the desire for that meeting, but also the outcome of that meeting and be able to action accordingly is going to be very helpful to you. So I think it's important to think about that, as well as when you're managing and monitoring those individual meetings that are happening kind of either in parallel to content or outside of content, being able to have a tool at your disposal where you can go in, make updates to those times, agendas, the team of people that is being met with, in real time, and not being able to have to manage that in a spreadsheet and then send calendar Outlook invites is something that most of our clients are talking to us about today, streamlining those efficiencies.
All righty. So we have one more poll. So before we get into some of the meatier content, we just wanted to ask up top, just to gauge temperature of the room, how you measure success for the events you attend. So is it amount of engagements, qualified engagements, sales satisfaction, or prospect feedback? We'll give it a second for the answers to come in. Okay, we got some answers. So it's looking like qualified engagements is definitely leading at 54%. Right behind it, the amount of engagements. Yep. So it looks like qualified and the amount of engagements is the most important factor that you guys consider when analyzing your program. So that kind of funnels in perfectly to our next couple slides. So if trade shows and congresses are an important pillar of generating awareness and consideration for your products and services, yet, like we mentioned, only 6% of marketers believe their company is actually successful in converting engagement touch points into opportunities, then we need to be aware of some areas where we can reverse that trend to ultimately deliver positive results for our stakeholders. So how do we get there? In the next section, we're going to outline just a few ways that technology and just a little change management can make a very big difference. And this is where Trade Show Solutions comes in. So Cvent Trade Show Solutions, this product suite consists of Cvent Jiffle Now and Cvent iCapture, which, like I mentioned, we acquired at the beginning of this year. For life sciences, healthcare, exhibitor managers, meeting organizers, and marketers who struggle with scheduling on-site meetings between employees and HCPs, we offer Cvent Trade Show Solutions, which provides seamless engagement capture, meeting scheduling, workflow management, and data-driven insights for your organization. So Cvent Trade Show Solutions, it can help with each stage of your global events program for the events you attend. So let's dive a little bit deeper. Okay, so Jiffle Now. So to accomplish complex meeting management needs, you need purpose-built tools for that job. So here at Cvent, we've invested in a solution that aims to do just that. With Jiffle Now, you have a tool aimed to make automated scheduling, workflow management, and reporting capabilities much more seamless. With Cvent Jiffle Now, meeting logistics and request forms are established ahead of time, who determines the parameters of each meeting type. So maybe it's a simple one-to-one meeting, or maybe it's a show we need to provide time slots for 15-minute demos, or maybe it's just a general session at the show where we need to block off time for. Once the automation has been defined, the instance can just be deployed to our internal and external participants. So internal team members can schedule meetings directly from Jiffle Now's Salesforce app, a mobile app, or through their web portal. Prospects attending the same show can request meetings directly with the booth staff via a customized site that can be emailed or embedded on the website. And workflows, maybe most importantly, keeps everything and everybody in check. Your custom meeting types, such as demos or tours, can be mapped to locations and or subject matter experts to ensure that when the meeting is booked, it's assigned to the right person for that job. And if a meeting requires any additional oversight or approvals, a workflow can be put in place and established so that all requests require pre-approval before it's finalized. Okay, we're going to go just a little bit deeper into some of the value props I just mentioned. So one tactic that attendees are using to improve the predictability and productivity at trade shows or congresses is meeting automation software like Jiffle Now. So furthermore, just many pharma companies often require pre-arranged meetings with key stakeholders to be put in ahead of time. So instead of being reactive and waiting for traffic to arrive, teams can proactively fill up their schedules with high priority inbound or outbound engagements with customers. And customers can also receive schedule notifications leading up to the show, and Logan kind of touched on it, but this used to be done via Outlook and over the phone, where countless emails or phone calls were blasted to attendees in hopes that they would show up. But with meeting automation software, trade show and Congress program managers have pre-show awareness on how active their team may or may not be at the show, and they can use the data to tweak their staffing needs accordingly. And another main issue we want to discuss is with larger shows, there can be a lack of coordination and organization. For meetings, organizers want to be able to assign SMEs and executives just based on the topic at hand. Times and locations must be standardized for booth tours and other ancillary activities. And after the meeting concludes, we want post-event follow-up such as surveys and downloadable attachments. Traditionally, a lot of this can be done in Excel or Outlook, but as you've probably experienced, and as we talked about in our pain point slide, it requires a lot of trial and error, aligning appropriate executives, SMEs, and locations to one meeting. Then there's the added complexity of finding a time that works for all parties. Automated workflows allows team members to be more efficient before and during the event, therefore taking all the guesswork and back and forth coordination that plagues traditional meeting management. Okay, the last value prop, reporting capabilities. So for events that have these structured meetings, how are we handling the engagements post-show? There's so much value from meeting face-to-face that prospects, it sometimes get buried in personal calendars and notes that our marketing ops teams don't have access to. So marketing automation software can generate reports and sync meeting data back to your preferred databases to allow just for better analysis on the overall productivity, as well as the customer interactions and connectivity. And when it comes to outreach, you have an organized compilation of what occurred during the meeting, allowing for sales and customer success reps to have more constructive conversations in follow-up. And when you combine this with engagement capture solutions, check-in solutions, survey data, and or other metrics you're currently tracking, you have a much clearer impact of the actual impact that the event is generating. So now I'm going to turn it back to Logan to explain the other half of Trade Show Solutions, iCapture.
Great, thanks so much. Well, in your recent poll, when you were talking about pain points, the largest majority of you kind of came back and said, I'm having challenges with engagement quality and quantity. And so this is where I'm excited to talk to you a little bit further about iCapture. So when we talk about enablement, as an example, a consistent set of tools is key as you're trying to identify which way to best capture the leads for your organization. So I recently attended an event where we were at a booth and elected to use both. We had to be trained on the software provided by the host organization before we got there. But I also noticed that it was disparate sets of information. The information that the host was capturing was relevant to me, but maybe not as relevant as what I was capturing in my own tool myself that I was able to create and be able to define how I wanted to answer those questions to make it more actionable. In addition to that, when we think about more qualified engagement, being able to go in and consistently be able to fill in information based on that lead or that interaction with that HCP is helpful. If you can get down to the specialty area, the therapeutic area, the actual tool or med device of choice, things that can help you be able to qualify that engagement a little bit further than perhaps just your standard data that you receive, which would be name, title, company, email address, for example. And then the ability to then to track that when you're at a Congress or a trade show, to be able to say, I spoke to X number of individuals and be able to qualify those leads according to the data that you've collected, helps again action yourself more further when you are working with your internal organizations to set up those next step tasks. So let's move to the next slide, if you don't mind. We're going to talk specifically about enabling. So when we think about how to enable yourselves, iCapture has developed over 100 badge kit integrations with our leading event technology partners, and also supports ad hoc configurations. So again, as you're coming in and setting up your tool for success, you have the ability to align with those current badge kits that are being provided, but then also add to the actual information that you're capturing within the tool. We also have the ability to scan business cards if we need to. So that's the ability to go in and scan that business card. You can do it very simply and very easily. So that's another additive way where if you are obtaining business cards, you have the ability to get that information. And finally, when we think about inbound engagement, we're thinking about if you have tools where you want to capture that information before they come to the booth or as they come to the booth, so that you have the ability to go in and capture that information in a way where you're asking them to enter that information beforehand. So again, you have record of what you're talking to them about or the interest that they've expressed in that engagement with that HCP. When we think about driving a qualified engagement, right? So when we think about the templates that you can develop and the logic that is associated with those templates, you get to be have a seat at the table when you're asking those questions. Your marketing team can come in and ask you to make sure that you're asking the right questions for the right event, and then the logic can be applied to associate that to a task or a behavior. You also, as I mentioned before, have the ability to score that or prioritize that. So you have the ability to prioritize one lead over another based on a specific set of criteria, again, that you've aligned to internally within your organization. And then a really neat element of this is the engagement routing. So not only can you route to perhaps your sales team, but you also have the ability to route to other teams like marketing as an example, just in case they want to be able to align or assign somebody to a specific campaign within the org. And finally, when we track, right? So often you are saying the quantity of engagements are important to you. The manual process and the juggling of different lead retrieval tools is a guaranteed way to kind of slow down your sales and marketing team's ability to kind of convert those engagements into opportunities for your organization. So if your data isn't directly funneling from your engagement to your sales and marketing channels, you're putting your organization at risk for not being able to convert those people effectively or provide more information to those HCPs. If you multiply that by kind of 30 to 75 different trade shows that you attend a year, that's a considerable amount of disparate systems and disparate data sets. We do have the ability to have dashboards and analytics in kind of real time. So for example, if your leadership comes to you or somebody at the event comes to you and says, how are we doing today? Where are we? You have the ability to give them an update on that. Additionally, if you were to think about at the end of the day, if you needed to drive more to a specific area or a specific team, you would have the ability to analyze what you produced in that day in terms of engagement analytics and be able to share that broadly across your org. And then from an ROI calculator, it does allow you to say how many, what's the quality, and then action that to be able to go back and say, as an investment into this Congress or this trade show, we were able to touch and educate and inform X number of HCPs and others that have influence over our product. So when we think about kind of some actionable tips of how to work together and to make the most out of your program, a lot of this is going to be aligning your goals and your data requirements. So having those internal conversations with the right team members to make sure that your goals and your data requirements are aligned and then translated into the tools that you're using to support the event. That then helps you have a more robust data story. The next is kind of seek stakeholder feedback and input around the tools that they're using today. Again, if you're using different tools for different events, having to educate and train those stakeholders may be a little bit more confusing when it's not their native tool. And so how do we want to support them better so that they're successful in their efforts? When it comes to lead capture and planning, it is part of the overall planning timeline that we would include. So when we think about the standardizing of technology and what tools are compatible with which shows, there is this additional element of taking the time to be able to plan accordingly, because there may be some configurations or updates that need to be made to your system as you're setting it up for success. And when we think about integrations, how do you maximize those integrations? So you're collecting all of this great, robust data, but how are we taking that data that then sits in Cvent or Jiffle Now and iCapture and then thread that to back to your sales teams accordingly? So back to their CRM as an example, or Salesforce as an example. You could also thread that back to Viva. And then we want to arm your team for success. So we think having a single set of tools in your toolkit with the ability to train those team members and be able to maximize their output really helps you in being most successful within your organization to meet your goals. So I think we're at the questions and answers segment of our show.
We are. Thanks so much, Logan, and those who have attended. That about wraps it up. We'd also want to just mention at the very end, if you'd like to earn a $100 Amazon gift card, you can sign up with a demo with us, and we'll pop the link in the chat. To any recipient outside the U.S., the gift card can be converted to $100 US dollars to another currency available of your choosing. So now we'd like to just turn it over to you for any questions you might have about what we discussed today. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so there's one here that says, could you elaborate on the importance of leveraging consistent tech tools for the events you attend? Yeah, Logan, I can take this and you can chime in if you want to at the end, but we mentioned earlier in the presentation, but just to reiterate, having inconsistent set of tools for each event you attend, it'll force your teams to have to learn new tools at each event. And we feel like that further distracts from those conversations, which is so key to events like congresses and trade shows. And that also kind of sort of puts a hold on getting those leads back to your sales and marketing teams for follow-up. So needing to learn a new set of tools each event, we feel like is just a sort of blocker and a delay in time where you could devote a lot of that to having those conversations and capturing the right data. So we think it sort of reduces messiness each event. It saves times, and it also ensures teams are well prepared and well equipped to take on the show.
I also think that what I would add is that when we think about consistent data points, if you have different tools and different sets of questions that are being asked at each event, being able to aggregate and amplify that data in a way that comes back and allows your organization to have a more substantive conversation about how you do what you do is somewhat of a challenge. The ability for you to kind of look across various congresses with kind of apples to apples or data sets that are consistent allows you to evaluate things at a deeper and more substantive level than perhaps you'd have the opportunity to do before.
Absolutely. All right, so this next one says, are there best practices for improving adoption across my organization? Yeah, there definitely are. I think leveraging customer success stories, sort of a lot of the stuff that we mentioned here today is just being transparent and increasing visibility as far as the numbers and the reporting. We feel like if you're able to properly communicate post-event the actual impact of the event to internal stakeholders, we feel like that is the best way to get buy-in, especially at an organization that values events and attends many events every year. They want to see the most amount of value they can out of each one. And if you're able to communicate in numbers or metrics, we feel like that's probably the best way to increase adoption.
The one thing that I would add to that, and what we see being very successful across orgs, is if you take either a specific Congress type as an example, right? So like, how do you think about the strategic adoption approach to all of this? Can you start small and then bolt on to larger, more substantive congresses? But our thought is kind of test it, be able to live and breathe it, learn from it, and grow from it, and then over time add on or bolt on as an adoption process.
Sure. Okay, so one here says, I'm responsible for driving engagement and registration for about 40 meetings a year. We use Cvent registration system. What additional value would Jiffle Now or iCapture add? Logan, do you want to take that, or you want me to grab that one?
Sure, we can tag team it. So the additional value that iCapture and Jiffle Now would add, I would say Jiffle Now, that's the meeting software, right? The ability to schedule meetings. I have heard and witnessed, particularly at congresses, and as an example, there's a lot of co-located ancillary events with a lot of different people managing them, right? Maybe agency partners, maybe different teams, those sorts of things. But managing a holistic schedule where you can go in and capture segments of time at a certain location, push out that information to the appropriate individuals, whether that be HCPs or your internal staff, of what is expected of them in real time is very helpful, right? From a Jiffle Now standpoint, you have the ability to go in and we all know things change, right? So instead of canceling, going into a spreadsheet, canceling, going into Outlook, reestablishing the Outlook calendar, updating it, all of those sorts of things, the ability to be able to do that easily and seamlessly, not only with your team, but let's say you're managing the schedule of events across teams, having those individuals be able to go in and see what's already been scheduled, so you aren't duplicating efforts or duplicating entries, is also incredibly helpful. I do think that from an iCapture perspective, when we're thinking about the HCP, I know a lot of conversations internally are about, are we educating, informing this HCP? Do they want additional information? And then how do we make sure that if I'm at a Congress in Chicago, that my team in North Carolina gets the information in order to be successful? You can't take everyone right to the Congress. There are a lot of people that do attend, but it's like actioning those engagements from where they sit in real time, so that those in market have the education and the ability to perform their duties and tasks accordingly. I would also say that iCapture as a tool is very helpful because you can now quantify the number of HCP that you've spoken with, but in greater specificity. So if you are at a Congress and talking about a certain therapeutic area or a certain device that you're selling, maybe there are multiple opportunities to have a variety of different conversations. Being able to segment that data and having specific data that's important to your org is really a value add for me, for sure.
Logan nailed it. I don't have anything to add there, but it kind of funnels into the next one, which is saying, what is the driving need in the market for tools like iCapture and Jiffle Now? So I can take this one to start, but some of the stats that we presented at the very beginning, I think, kind of tell the story in the best way possible. So stats like 90% of attendees are looking for new tools, and like 80% have buying authority, but only 6% believe they're actually delivering on that impact. We think that is probably the best way that we can highlight the driving market need for these tools. So there's a clear disparity and a lack of tools to actually deliver on impact for events and prove that impact to the organization. So iCapture and Jiffle Now, Logan just touched on most of this stuff, but iCapture and Jiffle Now arms teams with just one suite of tools for workflow, appointments, and lead capture. And those tools together arm you with just a suite that you can get the most out of events that you attend and actually prove the impact of the events you attend, which we've touched a bunch of times. And the integrations with major CRM tools like Salesforce and Viva, it also speeds up the follow-up process like we discussed before, and that's hugely beneficial when it comes to trade shows and congresses.
The only thing that I would add there is that oftentimes there's a discussion internally around, why are we sending all of these people? What value are they driving? How are they moving the needle forward? And is it within our best interest, or could we streamline that? So the tools like this allows you to be able to demonstrate with data. Logan Downey, spoke to 15 HCPs, right? I did this, I did that. What are the action items that areas that we've discussed, and be able to quantify that in a way that defends why I need to attend or why the number of people need to attend. It just helps kind of, again, as you're thinking about budgets and the data that you're capturing and being able to communicate that to your leadership, but then also as you're designing the strategy, the marketing strategy around this, it's always helpful to have those extra data points in that conversation as you start planning for the future.
Absolutely. So I think that's all the time we have today. We thank you guys so much for attending and asking such great questions. We hope you got some value out of it. And thank you, Logan, for speaking with me. And this has been great. And if you asked a question and you haven't gotten an answer yet, we can take some time in chat and answer everything. And as we mentioned, in the resources tab, you can access the full deck as well. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.